Welcome back. 2016 has certainly been an election year like no others. People from both parties have been extremely vocal about their beliefs and criticisms of the other party, and now many are protesting against President-elect Donald Trump.
But as people voice their concerns about an uncertain future, what impact could it have on our children? Here to talk about with us this morning about the dangers of stoking fear in children is Dr. David Bendor, a psychiatric clinician at Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living. And good morning, Dr. Bendor.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us today. I want to ask you, first of all, because this is kind of new to all of us, what kind of training do you have to talk about presidential elections? It's you know, a new field for a lot of doctors.
It really is. I mean, the one thing that we do have experience doing, though, is talking about major events affecting society that are talked about in society and how to distill that and convey that to our children of varying ages. You know, so we'll talk a little bit perhaps about how we might talk to the 4-, 5-, 6-year-olds, very different than the 12-, 13-, 14-year-olds.
Is this new? I would imagine with many things that are, you know, on television, that the things that are sensitive, but there are things that we're seeing now on TV, whether it is, you know, hate protests and swastikas. How does that affect children?
Well, I mean, it's incredibly overwhelming and incredibly frightening, and I think it's our job, it's incumbent upon us to really do what we can to protect them and make ourselves available to debrief or process with them. So a 4-, 5-, 6-year-old overhears something you wouldn't want him or her to hear on a school bus with other, you know, older students. He or she could be quite overwhelmed, quite frightened by that. We can't know that. We can't make those assumptions. So it's important for us to follow up with our kids and check in with them and err on what I call err on the side of sensitivity. Assume they may be affected by what they've heard or what's going on in the news or around the dinner table, and check in with them in a quiet time to just see how it's resonating. Don't give them too much information. Ask them if they have any questions about something they heard today.
How would you broach that? I mean, how would you start a conversation?
Sure.
With, you know, because kids can be a little bit closed and you know, they don't really want to give a lot of information.
Sure.
How would you approach that?
Right. So if I role play, for example, I might say something like, hey, you know, at dinner you might have heard me and cousin Dennis really get into it and really get into it. You saw a lot of emotion. You saw us really angry. Just want to check in with you. What was that like? Do you have any questions about what we were talking about or how mad he looked or how mad I looked? And just kind of prompt them. They're free to say, no, I'm good, Dad, thanks, bye. But they may, you might be surprised, they may in fact say, yeah, I was really concerned when I saw him like lean into you as he was talking, and what was that all about?
And of course it begins at home, and you know, many of these, you know, parents who did vote for Hillary Clinton are upset that Donald Trump won, and they're saying things in front of their children like, he's a racist, he's dangerous, he's going to build a wall. Should they be doing that in front of the children?
And don't forget, we're also going to move you all to Canada is another one they're hearing. And the problem is, again, it has to do with age. 12, 13, 14-year-olds, you know, older students, they can get it. They might get sarcasm. They might get the hypotheticals. A 5-year-old who hears they're building a wall, they're building a wall. They're not going to pick up on the sarcasm. If they hear, oh, well, we're moving to Canada, they're in their head already thinking, okay, who might I be saying goodbye to? Can my dog come with me? Will there be food in Canada? You just never know. So you do have to be very careful about how it's kind of disseminated to the younger ones.
You have young children yourself. Have any of your children or their friends asked you questions about it, or, you know, expressed some of the things that they've heard?
Yeah, I mean, I was at a family gathering not too long ago. I was at a birthday party another time, and at times I do cock an eyebrow. I got to be careful. I'm there as a fellow parent. I'm not there as a psychologist, but I do cock an eyebrow when I hear certain kids who are quite young saying very angry things about either candidate. I'm just kind of wondering where they're getting that and what sense they're making of it, because we can think about flawed adults and things they say and shouldn't have said and things like that, but a kid, a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old thinking about that this person in charge has done certain things, or is a bad person, or is a mad person, that can be terrifying for them because they don't get the concept of, you know, this is a flawed person, has strengths, has deficits like we all do.
How do you know when it goes from beyond, say, you know, kids repeat certainly things that they hear in the home to things that are concerning, that perhaps they've been touched in a bad way by it and they're maybe acting out and maybe you're not quite sure why?
Right, and that's a great question, and that's the difference between the idea of the what's water off a duck's back and what really resonated and what's really affecting them, frightening them, things like that. With most of these things, you know, these big events, we look for changes in behavior. I agree with you. I think a lot of kids, 6 or 16, older, they're not going to step forward and say, you know, I heard something earlier today, it really upset me, can I tell you how? Look, as a psychologist, I'd love if that were the case. It's really
They
not.
really don't.
It would make it a lot easier. They don't. So again, it's about making yourself available to them, and as you said, it starts at home. Making yourself available, saying, you know, I've noticed some things a little different. That's what we're looking for first. We're looking for any changes in behaviors. Are youngsters, are they not socializing like they once did? Are they looking to go to bed earlier? Are they staying up a lot later? Are they not eating? Are you getting reports from school that things aren't going so well? Those changes of behavior often suggest something's amiss. And I'm not suggesting we become alarmists and get that concerned, but it definitely warrants a check-in just to see how things are.
You know, when I was a kid, it was Watergate. 20 years ago, we talked about how to talk to kids about President Clinton having an affair with a White House intern and all the details that came with that, the tawdry details.
Right.
And today, it's you know, Donald Trump and some of the things that people say that he's going to do.
Correct.
How long does it stick with kids?
Right. Kids are different. I mean, it's definitely not one size fits all, my response. It's, you know, because again, that term I use, that err on the side of sensitivity. There are some kids, and I had a young man actually say it to me, a patient of mine I saw just a couple hours ago, and he was talking about how heated and contentious the next family gathering is going to be, and he's kind of rolling up his sleeves as he's telling me because he's prepping for this. And I said to him, thinking about this, I said to him, well, how are the young ones going to be around the table? Oh, they're going to hear it all. I said, what do you think that's going to be like for them? He said, oh, they've heard this kind of stuff, this kind of rhetoric, this angry. He says, I don't think it's great, but they've kind of gotten used to it. I don't think it's really going to affect them. And there are, in fact, some kids like that. It's not one size fits all. They're not all equally sensitive. But, you know, some kids definitely will be impacted. And again, it's like I said before, you're just looking for the signs.
What about social media? I mean, obviously you can limit the television at home if you can, or your conversations, and you can tone those down. But kids are on social media, and it's all over the place.
Right. And if it's not a presidential election, they're going to hear about something else that happened anywhere in the world, anything that's gone viral, and they're going to read about it or hear about it. So, you know, again, parental oversight, we don't get a pass just because social media is so readily available. I do want parents very much to involve, especially with the younger ones who are signing up for their accounts to Facebook or emails. They really do have to be vigilant. There are control settings we can use. But when you get a little older, I agree, this stuff is almost too readily available. Same kind of thing. If I'm aware that something might be circulating out there in the cyber world, I do want to take some time to step aside with one of my kids, no matter if he's 5, 6, or 16, and just check in with them about, hey, I know there's some stuff out there. Do you have any thoughts about it? And again, I'm not asking parents to be their kids' therapists. They're not going to kind of sit down on the therapist's couch and have a long discussion. But it is worth just checking in and saying, I'm here to talk. Some stuff's out there. Did you have any questions or concerns? They have a right to say no thanks, but they also might say, and they could surprise you, and might say, yeah, actually,
A final quick question before we go to break. It's Thanksgiving weekend, which is stressful for a lot of families because some people are with relatives they don't necessarily care for.
I've heard that happens.
There's drinking involved, there's some stress and tension, and now you add this. Should families plan in advance and say, listen, we are not going to talk about this weekend, or you can do it in that room?
Ready? I saw the email already for the Thanksgiving I'm going to, and the hostess spelled it out. This will be politics-free zone. And I've had
Really?
Yep. And I've had the hostess spelled it out. And if you want to eat, you'll abide by those rules, is my understanding. And I've had colleagues say the same thing. I've had patients say the same things at their families. Not all, but many of them. There is no shame or harm in doing that, and just taking a break and enjoying family. And then, you know what? After everybody goes their separate ways, and those who want to converse about stuff and raise that blood pressure, feel free.
Seems like a good idea. It's too bad you have to do it, but I guess you have to.
Absolutely. Dr. David Bendor from the Institute of Living, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Face the State.